So apologies, this video is going to be pretty long. It's probably quite boring at times, but I'll show you how I sort of went trying to solve a problem that this wouldn't start, and well, that's all I knew, it wouldn't start, but turned out there's another couple of issues with it. But I'll also show how I my methodology of trying to find a root cause when I thought I'd solved it and I actually hadn't, and then changing the spark plug and taking the carb. Well, I don't actually show taking the carb apart, but I do show putting it back together. Yeah, so that's it really. So I've been given this strimmer to look at because I've been told it doesn't start, and the guy ran out of fuel and can't really be bothered to mess around with it. So the first thing I've done is checked it primed. It took a little while, but it does seem to be getting fuel into the bulb. So I've obviously put some fuel in as well. Can't really say that looks too bad. Air filter doesn't look too bad. So I'll try and give it some pulls and see if it fires. Then I'll start and I'll look at the spark plug, check it's got compression. Maybe take a bit more off the carb and have a look in here. Just check everything over. Clean out the filter, give that a wash out because it doesn't look in bad shape apart from a bit of dirt on it. It's not really that bad. It's a bit oily, but I'll degrease that and see if it starts. I gave it a few pulls and it's not firing, so I'm going to start looking a bit deeper. Have a look at the spark plug. I don't know anything about these. I'm not a professional, so I'll just have a look. Spark plug does look fairly old, but I'll undo it, hold it close to the earth and see if it's getting a spark. But that does look like it's been in there a while. Check everything's got good contact. I mean, I've had a few of these and I've repaired and the tip of the spark plug's fallen off. Someone's put a longer spark plug in and it's stuck in the end of the piston, and the tip's fallen off and smashed itself around the piston, and people haven't wanted to spend the money on them, so I've ended up sort of cleaning it up and getting them running again. So take the plug out. It doesn't look flooded, and I've done quite a bit of priming, so maybe my initial thoughts are something to do with fueling rather than ignition. My experience with these is usually the fuel bulbs disintegrated and the particles have blocked the carb, or the filter in the fuel tank, the ends sort of decompose and they can block the tiny filter meshes or the tiny jets in the carb. So a lot of the time these things are resolved with a carb replacement, but I'll just see if we can see a visible spark. If we can get a good earth, should be right. I'm not sure if my camera's catching it, but it's definitely sparking. So could probably do with a new plug, but the electrode tip all looks pretty square. I'll check the gap anyway, but it doesn't look in too bad a state to at least make it fire. So I'll put that back in and try and get a bit more closer look at the carb when I'm priming and see if fuel's getting in, and then maybe pull the filter out of the tank and then maybe pull the carb off, or just go one step at a time. So I've just heavily primed it, more than I usually would. Probably squared that quite a lot of times, probably about 20 times. Opened up to have a look down, see if I can see anything. Can't really see anything with that piece on there, so I might take that off and have a look. But let's see if I can get it to fire now. Well, it seems to fire up pretty well, actually. I'm quite surprised. I'll probably have a try and get the end of the fuel strainer out. Sometimes hook these out with your finger if you can get in there. Hook it around. I can't. I might pull that out and have a look at that, see what the filter's like. Mine's a little tool. I can feel it. One of them's short, because there's a one that I think is a black one, maybe, or this one, I'm not entirely sure. One of them just pressurizes. I think it just, when you pump this, pushes air in to the tank, which kind of forces the fuel up into the carb. But there's usually a filter on the end, and that does often get completely just degrades. The same as these bulbs. These are terrible, some of them. You can buy them pretty cheap from abroad, but they don't last very long. So we'll... Oh, I don't think it's pumping air. But anyway, let's have a look and just make sure everything's all good. So I made this hook out of a bit of welding wire. Well, a very long time ago. I use it for spraying things and other stuff. So you just got to try and get under the fuel pipe, and then try not to rip it. I mean, that's pretty clean. I've just made it dirty with my fingers, but I'll try and find some. I think I've got some knocking around, the decomposed ones. That's in really good shape, actually. Very good. So I'll put that back in, and then I'll clean out the air filter, have a look at the carb. But I think a spark plug on it, and to be honest, it should be good to go, really. I'll go and test it in a minute. Here's a few pipes and some issues I've had recently on some parts petrol items I've fixed for people. And by the way, this is not my job, I just do it because I don't know, it's a bit of fun. But yeah, these fuel pipes, a lot of them are pretty low quality. They go brittle. I don't know if it's because the plastic's cheap that they've used, or if it's like the ethanol in the fuel or something like that. But they go really hard. Some of them, that you see, that's so brittle. I can't remember what each one of these particular issues was, but they're from a few different jobs. But yeah, usually that's definitely something to look for, as a crack in the pipe. But this one, that was a fuel bulb. Obviously it's perished or whatever, gone brittle, but tiny little crumbs of plastic had gone from this into the carburettor, and there's a little filter on the inlet into the carb, a little tiny metal gauze one that was blocked. So even when this was replaced, I had to pull out the little tiny filter on the inlet to the carb in the underneath there. This one, I don't know what happened, but there was no gap. I could have bent it out straight, but it was probably due a new plug anyway, and I had one knocking around, so I just put one in and sorted that out. But yeah, you can usually pick up carbs for these pretty cheap, and if it's got a spark and it's got compression and this is in good shape and your fuel lines are in good shape, then my experience is it's probably the carb. Yeah, so that's it really. I'm gonna, like I said, clean the air filter out, put a new plug on it at some point, and then yeah, it should be good to go. Give it a test run in the garden, I reckon. So I've decided to prise this off, this fuel line, because it is pretty tricky one-handed, pretty brittle. So I can pull it out. It's gone like solid. It'll probably be alright, but if it cracks, it will be a pain to prime. I've got some odds and sods, got some fuel pipe and stuff, so I'll just chuck a new one of those in. The black pipe's pretty good nick, so I'll just put a new one of these in. Yeah, like I said, get a plug on it when I can, and I'm going to go test it now in anger, see how it runs. Like I said I was going to do, cut a bit of pipe to the same length as this, putting it in, push it on if I can do it one-handed while holding the camera, which could be tricky. It's going. I think I'll finish it off. Yeah, so let's put the I'm going to put the fuel cap back in. Stuff that in. Just check it's still lovely. Still priming up good. So yeah, next thing, try and get a bit of oil out of the air filter because it's pretty wet, which, you know, may have been tipped on one side, and then the fuel could have come out of the carb, I don't know, maybe, and obviously the fuel will evaporate, but there's oil in the two-stroke, and I think that might be partly what this is, or a bit, you know, when it's running full throttle, maybe get a bit of blowback into the air filter. But I think whatever happens, it's going to cause, you know, resistance, so I'll try and get all the oil out of it, because that is pretty soaking. So I've just squeezed the filter into some tissue, going around it, turning it around. It's really clean, it's not dusty, so I'm just going to put it back in as it is for the minute, give it a run up in the garden and try and do some strimming with it, so see how it revs up properly, and all that, you know, make sure it's all acting as it should and the throttle's working properly, starting every time on first pull, that's what I want. And then I think a bit of oil in the filter probably helps catch, you know, the dust and stuff. A lot of aftermarket automotive filters are oiled, not usually foam ones, but you know, if it's starting and running fine, I'm not going to worry too much about a bit of residual oil. The filters are clean, so yeah, I have given it a bit of a squeeze out, a bit more, but I think that'll do just for running. I don't want to waste too much time on it, and then there's some other problems. I'll just clean out this housing in here, because obviously that's where the air filter's sitting. I'll do that when I've got my other hand free, and then I'll put it back together. So as I said, I cleaned the case now a little bit, chuck the filter back in, put that back on, I'd imagine the top cover probably goes first. Let's get that on. And we've got that the right way round. Yeah. This big dome goes over the spark plug. Something is not right. Oh, there we go. Screw down the retention bolt. Get it in the right place. Nice, that's going in. That's all good. And carb cover and air filter. I think it goes this way. Make sure these wires are out of the way. A bit tricky. This might be a two-handed job, I think. Something doesn't look right here. It's back on. Seems a bit odd. There's this big gap here, but must be the way it is. Yep, so I'll give it one last quick pull before I take it out. See if it goes. Interesting. So I'm wondering if it's something to do with the air filter. What happened then was the throttle cable, when I put the side cover on, the throttle cable was stuck out. I realised that when I pulled the trigger. So let's try again. I've probably flooded it now and see if it will fire. All good. So yeah, it wasn't starting because this is pulled out. It was stuck like that. I don't know if you can see that. Should have spotted that really. I hope. So let's go for another straight off pull now. Yeah, so that's all good. So this plug is an NGK-R. That means it's got a resistor BPMR6Y. So I'll get one of those or an equivalent ordered. That's on, down is on. Prime. Pull. So I just tested it in the garden and it runs really well. It seems to have a lot of power. Yeah, really good, strong motor actually. So that's great. I'm going to get a plug on it anyway and then give it back to the guy who asked me to have a look at it, and I think he'll be happy because he couldn't start it. I don't really know what the main cause of him not being able to start it was, because everything seems pretty good. Maybe it was the amount of oil in the air filter, maybe he wasn't priming it properly, not sure, but it's good news for everyone because it's a pretty easy fix. So yeah, that's it, and that's the model. Really easy to work on compared to some of the stuff, you know, you don't need minimal tools. So yeah, good job. Do a quick video on changing the spark plug. So I've got a new spark plug, genuine. You know, make sure you buy them from a reputable outlet because there's a lot of fakes going around. Always check the gap just eyeball it, make sure it's not been dropped or anything like that. Then undo this if you can. Carb cover first. Okay, then the top cover. Remove the HT lead. $19mm deep socket. Got a new plug. So note on the box it says how to tighten it. So if it's a tapered cone, a 1/16 of a turn once it's snug, and if it's got a washer, which I think that's what these pictures mean, once the washer's snug, 1/2 to 2/3 of a turn. So let's snug it up. Obviously that's the washer, that loose fitting part. So that's snug. So get your spanner somewhere. So I know 1/2 will be vertically down, and then 2/3 would take it to probably about there. Should be plenty. Make sure cap's on properly. Top cover back on. Obviously assembly is the reverse of installation. I mean removal, obviously. Okay. Air filter cover. It's a bit tricky with one hand. Okay. I'm going to need ignition. I can never remember which way's on this one. Prime it. That's the fuel bulb under there. Let's see if it'll fire. I think my ignition's off. Let's try now. Interesting. So it's not firing, and I have done exactly the same thing I did last time when I put the cover on. And that's the throttle cable was stuck outside of that, so the throttle was partly open. So I've slid this up in here because this moves in here, and it was like that, as you can see from the dust. So it was there, which is quite tight. So I've moved that up, give a bit of slack. And pop that back in. So down is definitely on. Yeah, so let's try again. Give it a little prime. definitely sounds like it's choking when you go full throttle, bogging down. So I've done this up too tight now. Just gonna try and run it full throttle without the cover on. Interesting. So it's bogging down, so that's probably either a fuel restriction or something in the carb, I'd imagine. I don't think it's spark now. So I'm going to pop out the fuel filter again from the tank, and I might just take it off the end and just put it back in the tank so that I eliminate that as a restriction. I've just pulled out the fuel inlet to the carb. Take this off. I'll just see if I'll take that off as well. I don't want that falling off in the tank. We'll see if that makes any difference to it bogging down, because obviously there's a risk of it picking up crud from the bottom of the tank, but just want to eliminate things really as to why it's bogging down, because it was good before. I'll check maybe revert back to the old plug quickly and see. It's very unlikely it's a new plug, but there's always a possibility. So there's a point in this video when I didn't actually film me taking the carb off, so I'm just going to quickly do that. You remove this cover. You take the throttle cable out, so open the throttle like so. Use a tool if you have to. Something that actually fits is probably useful. So pop the cable out of here. If you're doing it like me, like an amateur, making it hard for myself. There we go, it's easier to do it like that. Then you need this is a 3mm Allen key. So there's two 3mm Allen key bolts either side of the air filter mouth, or whatever it's called. So you undo those. And then try not to pull these out too much. This one will come out. This is the return when you prime. See the bubbles going back through. Try not to pull that one out too much, because you'll see it's an absolute pain to get back in. And then it's just a case of a small Phillips to undo the 4 screws on the bottom of the carburetor. Those screws go all the way through the different stages, and then they will just fall apart. As you'll see, I didn't really pay much attention to how it goes back together, so I had to figure it out a bit. And this is a non-posi head screwdriver. These are non-posi screws. I don't know what, that's a pretty small one, but yep, that's it. So when I tested it the other day, when I first thought I'd fixed it, it ran really well, it started really well. Put the new plug in, and it's bogging down mid throttle. So I took the filter off the end of the pipe in the tank to try and remove that restriction, and it's still bogging down. I ran it without the fuel cap on, so there's no vacuum or pressure build up or something, because there is a breather on these tanks I've just found, and I've resorted to stripping down the carb, and everything looks in pretty good condition. There's no splits, I can't see any debris until now. I think this is the main jet inlet on the carb. I think there's a very tiny piece of debris in there. Very hard to see. Maybe that's coming up now. See that? So I'm hoping that is what that is. So I'm just going to get a bit welding wire. I might have to sharpen this. That's too big. See that? I'll try and get something a bit sharper. So I've got a blade. Try tapping it out. Just want to zoom out. No, I'm going to try and pick it out as I was before, because I think then you know you've definitely got it. And I see that's just fallen out. I think it's still there. Oh yeah, look at that. Now I'm hoping, where's he gone? That is what's causing it to bog down. Tiny piece of fluff. So it's interesting. I thought it was a really easy fix. Ran it, did a bit of strimming, ran like an absolute beast, and then I've gone to run it again, and it's been a problem. So I don't have any gaskets, and I didn't rip these getting them off, so I'm going to reassemble it. I'll try and video the reassembly, and yeah, that's interesting. I tried to look at it on the microscope, but I'll do that now. I've got a microscope. See what that looks like. This is pretty cool. This is the piece of debris that I pulled out of the main jet. And if you look at it on the screen, that's what it is. It's so small. See if I can get a bit closer. I don't know what it is. There's obviously a bit of garden rubbish. Look at that. So I'm going to reassemble the carb now, and yeah, hopefully it will run up nicely. So I'm going to film me reassembling the carb. Hopefully it might be useful to someone. Hopefully I can remember where it all goes as well. Should be fun. So that main jet is where the piece of debris was. I'll just loosely reassemble things where I remember they go, so that goes in there. This gasket went on here, like so. Think, no, that's not right. I think that went on there. That looks about right. So then that looks like it matches on there. So that would go on 2 locating pins. 2 locating pins on there and there, go in there and there. Make sure there's no dirt and crap in there. So then that has 2 locating pins. Go on here. Then this gasket on there. Only goes one way by the looks of things, that's good. So then top of the carb, 2 more locating pins, like so. So that's good. I have forgotten a spring. So that spring went in there for that plunger. Let's put that back in there again. Spring through the hole. Then onto this. Another spring. I think that spring must go there. No. Spring will go on there. Yeah, you can just see a witness on the plastic in there where the spring's been sitting. I should have really paid more attention when I took it apart, but it wouldn't be as much fun putting it back together if you actually knew what you're doing. Right, okay, so the spring sits in the recess there. Right, we're good. So I'm just doing them all up loosely before I tighten it all up properly. I'll just check everything's all aligned. Start working my way around. so it needs to go back into there, get pushed into there, which doesn't feel like it's going to be easy, so I'll try and pull it out, and that needs to go back in there as well. This is a breather pipe, I think. So if I can get that out. I did have a hook for this, but I don't have it with me. Right, I think I've got it. I think I have to resort to something else to get this, maybe some needle nose pliers inside, put it out, because this is not fun and probably pretty boring to watch. So if you do pull the carb out off, don't do what I did and pull all this out, because then you end up in a world of pain. They're never going to fit. There's probably significantly easier ways of doing this. Okay, got it. Right, pull that through. Push that into there. Try and push it through with an Allen key, something blunt, so I don't pierce it. Small Allen key. If you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just trying to get the breather hose, sorry, the return hose back into the grommet, which I'm just pushing through with an Allen key. Attempting to push through an Allen key and failing miserably. Well, there's definitely a way of making a pig's ear of a job, and that is this. Okay, that went in. Made it look so easy for everyone. Breather hose, sorry, fuel inlet hose. That out. Now stick the clip on and the fuel filter. Little tiny clip. Okay, let's push that back into the tank now. I probably should have left it off, tested it, revved up, but Well, I'm fairly confident this time, just like last time that I fixed it. So there's two sides to this for the throttle cable to the carb. One side's round, one side's flat. So the throttle cable will only go in one way. Well, it'll go in both ways, but there's only one way you want to put it in. That's good. Carb back on. These are only small, so you don't need to He-Man it up. Okay, fuel back in. So I'll check out all the fuel. It's about, well, it's 800cc here, so it's not quite a full tank, but I can't imagine it holds much more. Fuel cap on, and just the carb cover. See if it primes up. Sounds good. Let's not make the same mistake that I always make. The throttle cable getting stuck open. Right, so now we should be cooking on gas. Let's see if it fires. A bit more fuel. That is significantly better, running very well. So yeah, I thought I'd fixed it before, and clearly I hadn't, because that tiny piece of fluff was in the main jet orifice in the carb. So yeah, this one, another fun little fix. Hope it was useful to someone. Oh, that's it really.